Hello everyone, welcome back to this session. In this session, I'm going to talk about the Python's Lambda function. So, what is a Lambda function in Python? It is an anonymous function, the function that does not have any name. It can accept any number of arguments but can have only one expression. The syntax for the Lambda function is like the first it the Lambda keywords here, and then it can accept the parameters here, and then it has the expression here. Okay, so here as you can see, we are not assigning any name to it. That's why we can call it as an anonymous function. Okay, so it can accept any number of parameters, but it can have only one expression. So let's understand how lambda function work in Python with one example. What I want here is I want to write a lambda function to get the sum of two numbers. Okay, so it will accept the two parameter as the numbers, and then it has expression to add those two numbers. Okay, so how can I do that? Here I want to write a lambda keyword, then it can accept the two parameters. This is basically a numbers. Okay, and then it has the expression like a plus b. Okay, so this basically returns the sum of these two number. As you can see here, we did not provide any name to this lambda function. Okay, so what I can do here is I will assign a reference to this lambda function. So how can I assign it? By assigning the equal to operator. Okay, now this add variable has the reference to this lambda function. Okay, now in the next line, I will call the reference variable by providing the two argument. Let us suppose I will provide here 3 comma 4. Now these two parameter are taken by this lambda function as a comma b and returns the sum of these two number. Now what we will expect here, the output is 3 plus 4 as 7. Now let's execute this one, python main.py. Now you can see here we are getting the expected output. Now the one more thing here is the lambda function is more frequently used with the higher order function. So let's understand how we can use a lambda function with higher order function with one example. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I will declare one list which is going to the number of list of numbers here: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10. Okay, what I want is I want to calculate the square of all the numbers, which is basically the new list. So this we can do in multiple way, but here what I want to explain to you is I want to calculate the square of numbers using the lambda function with the higher order function, which is basically a map. So here I'm going to explain what is a map. So map is basically a built-in function in Python which can take the first argument as the function and then second argument is an iterable. So what map function is going to do for us here is it applies this function to each element of the iterable. Let's understand this one as well with one example. So what I want to calculate here is I want to calculate the squares of each element from the numbers list. So here I am going to write a map function which takes the another function as an argument. So here I am going to write a lambda function which can expect an argument x and it returns the square of it. Now here this function will be invoked for every element of the numbers list. So here we need to provide a numbers. Okay, now what will happen, this map function applies this function or this function will be invoked for every element of the numbers list. Okay, so first it will be invoked for 1 and returns the square of 1. then it will be invoked for 2 and returns the square of 2, then it will be invoked for 3 and return the square of 3, and so on. And all the resulted element that will be stored in the map object, and this map function returns the map object to us. If you want to print it out, so print it over here. So I will be printing here, and let's execute this one. As you can see, we are getting the map object here, and this is basically an iterable. So if you want to iterate over it, let us suppose I'm iterating on the map object, and I will print here the item. Okay, now let's run this again. You can see we are getting the elements from the map object here, but what I want is I don't want to return the map object directly. I want to convert it into the list so that it will be helpful for us to see all the numbers on a single line. Okay, so how can we do that? We basically typecast the map object into the list, and now if we print the squares on line number 15, we will be able to see the resulted list. Okay, as you can see here, we are getting the list of the square of numbers. So this is how the lambda function works with the higher order function, which is simply a map. Okay, so map is basically an built-in function in Python. Okay, so this is how a lambda function work in Python. So that's all for this session. We will meet you in the next session.